Most people believe leadership is about having authority, a title, or being the one in charge. But leadership is not about power, it's about responsibility. It's about the courage to put others before yourself, to create an environment where people feel safe, valued, and inspired to bring their best. When we look at truly great leaders, the ones we admire, they don't succeed because they know all the answers. They succeed because they create the conditions where others can thrive. They understand that leadership is not a rank to be achieved, but a service to be given. The real question we need to ask ourselves is not, how can I be successful? But rather, how can I empower those around me to succeed? Because when you lift others, success takes care of itself. This is what leadership is all about. Not demanding loyalty, but earning trust. Not commanding results, but cultivating potential. Not chasing success, but inspiring people so that success becomes inevitable. And so today, as we explore empowering leaders, Simon Sinek's Guide to Success, let's remember, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in our charge. Leadership has often been misunderstood as the ability to control, dictate, or command. Many assume that when someone is given a title, a corner office, or a position of authority, they automatically become a leader. But leadership is far more profound and meaningful than just authority. Real leadership has little to do with the power you hold and everything to do with how you use that power to serve others. It's about choosing responsibility over privilege, about stepping into a role where the focus shifts from me to we. To say leadership is about being in charge reduces it to a function of position. True leadership is about taking care of the people in your charge, ensuring they feel safe, supported, and inspired to grow. When you walk into a workplace where people don't feel supported, you can sense it. There's tension, mistrust, and fear. People are more focused on protecting themselves than on working together. They compete against each other rather than collaborate. They withhold ideas rather than share them, and they operate with caution rather than creativity. This happens because those in authority mistake leadership for control. They expect loyalty without earning trust. They demand results without investing in people. What results is a culture of survival, not a culture of success. Contrast this with a workplace where true leadership exists. In those environments, employees feel valued, not just used. They believe their contributions matter, and more importantly, they know their leader has their back. They are willing to take risks, share ideas, and innovate without fear because they trust that even if they fail, they won't be abandoned or blamed. This principle extends far beyond the workplace. In families, communities, and even nations, true leadership shines when leaders take responsibility for the well-being of those they serve. Consider a parent who constantly demands obedience without showing love or guidance. The child may comply out of fear, but they will never flourish. Compare that to a parent who sets boundaries, provides care, and empowers their child to explore, knowing that they are supported even if they stumble. That is leadership in its purest form, not commanding compliance, but nurturing growth. The same applies in organizations. A leader's role is not to be the smartest person in the room, but to create a room where everyone feels smart, capable, and safe to contribute. The best leaders understand that titles don't make them leaders, behavior does. They show up consistently for their teams, listen more than they speak, and demonstrate empathy in moments of stress. They don't hide behind authority. They step forward with responsibility. When something goes wrong, true leaders take the blame. When something goes right, they give the credit away. This is what inspires loyalty. People don't follow titles, they follow trust. History and business alike are full of examples that prove this truth. The leaders we admire most are not the ones who barked orders, demanded recognition, or hoarded glory. They are the ones who stood shoulder to shoulder with their people, who sacrificed comfort for the greater good, who led not by demanding followers but by creating more leaders. Leadership, then, is not a position but a daily choice. It is the decision to put the needs of others before your own, to create an environment where people feel safe enough to be at their best, and to recognize that success is not measured by how high you climb, but by how well you lift others along the way. Trust and safety are the invisible foundations that determine whether a team thrives or falls apart. Without them, no strategy, no plan, and no amount of talent can truly succeed. When people don't feel safe, they hold back. They hesitate to share their ideas, they hide their mistakes, and they operate with caution rather than creativity. A workplace without trust becomes a battlefield of self-preservation, where people are more concerned with protecting themselves than contributing to the collective mission. But when trust is present and safety is felt, something extraordinary happens. People stop competing against one another and start working together. They are willing to take risks, share bold ideas, and support one another because they believe their leader and their peers will catch them if they fall. Creating trust doesn't happen overnight. It requires consistency, empathy, and a leader who is willing to put in the work to demonstrate reliability. Trust is not built in grand gestures, but in small moments repeated over time. It comes from keeping promises, listening without judgment, and showing up when people need you most. Leaders who foster trust understand that people won't open up if they fear being punished or humiliated. Instead, they create an environment where mistakes are seen as opportunities to learn, not reasons for shame. This doesn't mean lowering standards. It means raising the level of support so that people can rise to meet challenges without fear. Safety and accountability can coexist when leaders set clear expectations while also showing that they will stand by their teams in moments of difficulty. Think of trust like oxygen in a room. You don't notice it when it's present, but the moment it disappears, survival becomes impossible. In organizations, trust works the same way. When it's there, people feel free to focus on their work, on collaboration, and on creativity. When it's missing, every interaction feels heavy, every decision feels risky, and every person starts to look out only for themselves. The irony is that many leaders believe fear motivates. It may work in the short term, producing results through pressure, but it's never sustainable. Fear drains people, while trust fuels them. The best innovation, the best teamwork, and the strongest results emerge when people feel secure enough to give their best without constantly looking over their shoulders. Leaders who prioritize trust and safety invest in relationships, not just results. They take time to know their people, not only their performance metrics. They listen to their struggles, celebrate their victories, and acknowledge their humanity. When employees feel seen and heard, they naturally give more of themselves to the mission because they no longer feel like replaceable parts of a machine. They feel like valued members of a community. A culture of trust becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. The more people feel supported, the more they support each other, and the stronger the team becomes as a whole. At its core, trust and safety are not soft leadership concepts. They are the hard realities that determine long-term success. Leaders who ignore them may achieve short-term wins, but they will never build enduring organizations. Those who embrace them create environments where people are not afraid to speak truth, where innovation thrives, and where loyalty runs deep. Trust is not just a nice-to-have, it is the foundation upon which everything else is built. Without it, even the strongest structures crumble. With it, ordinary groups can achieve extraordinary results. Great leaders know that people are not inspired by instructions, demands, or even results alone. They are inspired by purpose, by meaning, by the clarity of why someone chooses to lead in the first place. Too often, leadership is misunderstood as a process of setting tasks, defining goals, and managing outcomes. While these elements are important, they do not ignite passion or commitment. What truly moves people is not what you ask them to do, but why you ask them to do it. A leader who simply directs actions creates compliance, but a leader who communicates purpose creates devotion. People can endure challenges, setbacks, and uncertainty if they believe in the reason behind their work. Without that sense of why, even the simplest tasks feel like a burden. When a leader leads with why, they create connection. They invite people into a story larger than themselves. Employees who feel part of a bigger mission show up differently. They are not just trading their time for a paycheck. They are contributing to something meaningful. This is why some organizations, even without the highest salaries or best perks, cultivate unwavering loyalty. Their leaders understand that humans crave purpose. When we know the deeper reason behind our actions, we engage not only our hands, but also our hearts and minds. The result is not just higher performance, but also greater fulfillment. Leaders who inspire with why do more than articulate a vision. They embody it. They live it in their decisions, in their priorities, and in the way they treat others. A leader who says the purpose of their organization is to empower people, but then micromanages every decision reveals a contradiction that erodes trust. But a leader who consistently aligns words with actions reinforces belief. When people see integrity between what a leader says and what they do, they lean in with confidence. The why becomes credible not because of speeches, but because of behavior. Think about the difference between a boss who tells you what to do and a leader who explains why it matters. The first may get short-term obedience, but the second creates long-term engagement. For example, telling someone to meet a deadline because that's the rule is far less inspiring than explaining how meeting the deadline contributes to helping a client, protecting the team, or advancing a mission that improves lives. The same action is required, but the motivation shifts from compliance to commitment. Leaders who frame tasks in terms of why give people the fuel to keep going, even when the work is hard. History and business provide countless examples of this truth. The most admired leaders, whether in social movements, organizations, or nations, did not start with a list of demands. They started with a cause, a belief, a why. They spoke to the hearts of people, not just their minds, and in doing so, they unlocked levels of courage and resilience that no order could ever achieve. This is why people marched, sacrificed, and stayed loyal even when success was uncertain. The why carried them further than any command ever could. At the core of leadership is the recognition that people follow not because they have to, but because they want to. And what makes them want to follow is belief in the purpose their leader stands for. When leaders prioritize why over what, they don't just build teams, they build movements. They don't just achieve goals, they inspire transformation. And that is the difference between temporary compliance and lasting impact. Success, as most people define it, is often centered on personal achievement, recognition, or climbing the ladder to a higher position. But the most impactful leaders know that success is not about the spotlight shining on them. It is about shining that light on others. Leadership is not measured by how many followers you have, but by how many leaders you create. When a leader makes it their mission to empower others, they multiply impact far beyond what they could ever achieve alone. True success comes not from standing at the top alone, but from seeing others rise because of the environment you built and the opportunities you created. When leaders focus only on their own advancement, they limit the growth of their teams. People sense when their boss is more concerned with looking good than with helping them grow. That kind of leadership breeds competition, secrecy, and fear. In contrast, when a leader is committed to empowering others, they create a culture of abundance. They share credit, they provide mentorship, and they encourage their people to take risks and learn. This not only elevates the individuals, but also strengthens the team as a whole. Success is no longer defined by one person's recognition, but by collective progress. In such cultures, individuals feel valued and supported, which drives loyalty and engagement at levels money alone cannot buy. Empowering others requires humility. It means a leader must be willing to put aside ego and recognize that their role is not to be the hero but the guide. A true leader celebrates when others succeed, even if those people surpass them in skill or recognition. They do not see this as a threat, but as evidence that they have done their job well. Empowerment means giving away some control, trusting others with responsibility, and allowing them to grow through experience. This can feel uncomfortable, especially for leaders who are used to having all the answers. Yet the most successful leaders understand that their greatest legacy will not be the results they personally achieved, but the leaders they helped to shape. When people are empowered, they develop ownership. Instead of waiting for instructions, they step forward with initiative. Instead of fearing mistakes, they see them as opportunities to learn. This shift in mindset transforms teams into communities where everyone feels invested in the mission. People stop asking, "What's in it for me?" and start asking, "How can I contribute to us?" That kind of collective thinking is what drives organizations to achieve goals that once seemed impossible. The ripple effect of empowerment spreads beyond the workplace. When people feel empowered in their careers, they carry that confidence into their families, communities, and broader lives. Leaders who empower others also create resilience. When challenges arise, a team that has been empowered does not collapse under pressure because responsibility and confidence are distributed. Everyone feels capable of stepping up, offering solutions, and supporting one another. Compare this to a team dependent on one leader who holds all the power. When that leader falters, the entire group falters. Empowerment ensures that success is sustainable because it is shared. In the end, empowering others is not just a leadership strategy. It is the essence of true leadership. Leaders who measure success by how many people they lift up create legacies that last far longer than their tenure. They prove that the greatest leaders are not remembered for how high they climbed, but for how many people they brought with them. Leadership is often imagined as a single defining moment, a grand gesture, or a bold decision that changes everything. But real leadership is rarely about intensity. It is about consistency. It is not the one-time inspirational speech that builds trust, but the daily actions, the repeated behaviors, and the constant presence of a leader who shows up for their people again and again. Intensity can inspire excitement for a short time, but consistency creates lasting belief. A leader who only appears in moments of crisis or celebration cannot build the same level of loyalty and trust as one who demonstrates steady care every day. Consistency is what tells people, "You can rely on me," and that reliability is the foundation of strong leadership. The problem many leaders face is the temptation to chase quick wins. They want to prove their leadership with big moves, dramatic changes, or visible results. While those moments can capture attention, they often fade just as quickly as they arrive. People don't remember what you did once. They remember what you do repeatedly. If a leader listens attentively one day but dismisses their team the next, trust erodes. If they recognize effort occasionally but ignore it most of the time, loyalty weakens. It is not about the occasional burst of kindness, vision, or accountability. It is about making those actions a consistent part of the culture. Consistency does not mean perfection. In fact, Leaders who try to appear flawless often lose credibility because perfection is not human. What matters is predictability. People need to know how their leader will respond, not guess which version of them will show up on a given day. A consistent leader builds stability, and stability fosters confidence. When employees feel that their leader will stand by them through successes and failures alike, they feel safe to take risks and innovate. Without that safety, teams hesitate, fearing that mistakes will be punished one day but ignored the next. Think of trust like a bank account. Every consistent action deposits trust, while every inconsistent action withdraws it. Over time, the leader who makes steady deposits creates a wealth of trust that can be drawn upon in difficult times. When challenges arise, teams are far more willing to follow a leader they know has been there for them consistently, not just when convenient. This is why some leaders are able to inspire extraordinary loyalty even in hardship. Their consistency has built a foundation that can withstand storms. Consistency also extends to vision and values. A leader who changes direction with every trend or abandons principles when convenient creates confusion and doubt. Teams thrive when they know what the mission is, why it matters, and how their leader will pursue it day after day. Leaders who hold steady to their values, even when tempted by easier paths, show their people what integrity looks like in action. This consistency of purpose inspires others to do the same. The true power of consistency is that it compounds over time. Just as small, steady investments grow into significant wealth, small, steady acts of leadership grow into unshakable trust and loyalty. A kind word today, a fair decision tomorrow, an honest conversation the next day. None of these alone may feel like much, but together, repeated over weeks and years, they shape a culture. Teams led with consistency become stronger, more resilient, and more unified because they know exactly where they stand and who stands with them. Great leaders are not remembered for a single dramatic act. They are remembered for the steady presence they provided, the unwavering values they upheld, and the consistent care they gave to those in their charge. The true measure of a leader is not found in the profits they generated, the awards they collected, or the headlines they captured. It is found in the culture they leave behind long after they are gone. Leadership is temporary, but culture endures. A great leader understands that their legacy will not be written by their own hand, but by the experiences of the people they led. The values they instill, the trust they build, and the environment they create outlast their presence. Culture is the invisible force that shapes how people think, behave, and collaborate, and it reflects the kind of leadership they experienced. When leaders focus only on short-term gains, they may achieve impressive results in the moment, but those results often collapse when they move on. Numbers can be forced, targets can be hit, and profits can be extracted. But if the culture underneath is toxic, fragile, or fearful, it eventually breaks. On the other hand, when leaders prioritize culture, they create a foundation that sustains growth, innovation, and trust long after their departure. A strong culture acts as a compass, guiding people in the absence of direct supervision. It tells them not just what to do, but how to do it, and more importantly, why it matters. The most admired leaders know that culture is not built in a mission statement on the wall. It is built in the daily actions, behaviors, and values they model. If a leader preaches collaboration but rewards competition, the culture will reflect competition. If they speak about trust but lead through fear, fear will define the culture. People do not learn from what leaders say, they learn from what leaders do. This is why the culture a leader leaves behind is the truest reflection of their leadership. It is the shadow of their character, magnified over time and across people. Culture also determines how resilient an organization will be in times of change or crisis. A culture built on fear collapses under pressure because people retreat into self-preservation. A culture built on trust, empowerment, and shared purpose rises to the challenge because people support one another and adapt together. Leaders who invest in culture are not just preparing their teams for success today, they are preparing them to succeed tomorrow, even in the face of uncertainty. That continuity is what separates leaders who leave an impact from those who are quickly forgotten. The way a leader treats people on their team ripples outward into the culture. When leaders value respect, kindness, and growth, those qualities become the standard. When they show favoritism, dishonesty, or neglect, those too seep into the culture. Every choice a leader makes is amplified, shaping the environment in which people work and live. This is why leadership is such a profound responsibility. It is not just about leading in the moment, but about shaping the conditions for those who will come next. The ultimate question every leader should ask themselves is not, "What did I achieve while I was in charge?" but "What will continue because I was here?" If the systems collapse when a leader leaves, they were never truly leading, they were only managing results. But if the culture continues to thrive, if people carry forward the values and behaviors instilled by their leader, then that leader has left behind something far greater than personal success. They have left a legacy of trust, purpose, and resilience. That is the true measure of leadership, the culture that remains when the leader is no longer present.